you want to be the best at one thing such that no other competitor can be better than you in this one area. So niching allows you to do that. Otherwise, you're just mediocre.
Because when you get to 10 million in annual recurring revenue, your buyer pool changes, meaning the types of firms that are willing to acquire your business completely changes.
Hello, Martians. Hello, world. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing on Mars. Today, man, I'm super excited to be here with Andrew Gazdecki. He's someone that I've been following for a long time. He's currently the CEO of MicroHire, former CEO of Business Apps and Altcoin. Both have been acquired, and is Inc. 30 under 30 entrepreneur. Someone that I follow a lot. He's constantly posting content on LinkedIn, and I read his content a lot. So really excited, Andrew, to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So a little bit of a background. I'll do a short little intro on Andrew. He's basically been a lifetime entrepreneur and won as many awards as I can't even list the number of awards that his company has won. Inc. 500 fastest growing company, best entrepreneurial company in America on entrepreneur.com, G2 Crowd top 50 SMB products. The list goes on and on. Andrew, maybe tell us a little bit, give us a little bit about your background and kind of how you started MicroHire and your whole story.
Yeah, definitely. How far back you want me to go? I can go back to age 5 or 18 or 30.
Okay.
Give me
All
an
right.
age.
Back to when you first started your kind of entrepreneurial journey, the first thing you did, where you're like, okay, I can actually do this whole startup thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I definitely thought of Facebook. No, just kidding. I would say I've been an entrepreneur kind of my whole life. I was, I did all the cliche stuff like selling stuff on eBay when I was 13. When my friends were collecting Pokemon cards or baseball cards or whatever, I was the one selling them. I grew up in a town called San Clemente. And didn't really grow up with a lot of means, if you will. So I kind of entered or stumbled across this entrepreneurship as almost like a survival mechanism. Entrepreneurship is sexy and glamorized, and it's kind of the cool thing to do. But for me, it was like when I wanted to skateboard, I had to like go and earn, make money. So, got into it pretty early and then just fell in love with it. So first real endeavor, I was always doing a bunch of stuff. I made like websites for like local bands in high school. I did like photography. I was really into like hardcore like rock music. There was a big like scene for that in Orange County, and so I would get paid to make like bands websites, like come to the shows, make photos. It was super cool. I get to stand on stage, and I was like a late bloomer too, so I was like super short and like so that was fun. But the first like business that probably like really got me like, whoa, this is insane, it's pretty embarrassing, but it was a company, or not a company. It was a website called Wow for Cheap. And that stands for World of Warcraft for cheap.
Okay.
And it was an affiliate website because people would buy gold to go buy like a sword or whatever inside of World of Warcraft. And I set up a website where, and I basically just, and this is like sophomore year of college, and I just set up like a simple Google AdWords account. I was super early into it. And I remember making like 50 grand or something that summer. I don't tell this story too often, but so I'm like looking up like, oh my gosh. And it was all in like autopilot. And I'm thinking like, I'm going to, basically be, balling in college and not doing anything. I was like looking up cars to buy and stuff. And then the cost per click to get to my website, the whole model fell apart, if you will, within like 3 months. It was just like summer of like, whoa, and then like a quick decline. So it's kind of like the biggest heartbreak I've had in my entrepreneurial career. And then after that, started a job board called Phone Freelancer, which connected mobile developers with businesses. And this is when the iPhone like just came out. So no one knew how to find a developer. And I basically just bought like just a simple script, like a pre-built one. And I just uploaded it to a server and then spent like a whole semester like commenting on everything possible iPhone. Like, hey, you have an iPhone idea? Post it here. And then sold that for what felt like a $1 billion in college because I was pretty broke.
Yeah. How much did you sell
and
it for?
then used that at I think it was around like 50K.
Okay.
I was 20 or 19 when I sold it. So I can't remember the exact amount. I probably should, but it felt like 50 billion.
Yeah.
Like going out to the, I'm going out tonight. I bought like some dumb watch. I bought like some Nixon watch. And then I used the rest of that for seed capital for business apps, which was a no-code mobile app builder. And that was the whole reason I sold Phone Freelancer was I kept seeing all these people posting these jobs for like a high-end luxury restaurant or hotel. And I'd have like the full spec of what they wanted, like a loyalty program. And this is again at a time when no one really knew how businesses could utilize mobile apps for their business. And so I said, okay, there's these like do-it-yourself website builders. Why isn't there a do-it-yourself mobile app builder for small businesses? And so I sold that business, made a template just for me. And so the original kind of like goal with business apps was I just didn't want to get a job. So I just thought, okay, people are selling these apps for like 50K. If I can get like 100 customers, like I got a little agency, cool, don't have to get a job. And then ran that company for about 8 years. And and kept going.
So that was so first company $50,000, second company $50,000, and then you grew your next company right after that from 0 to, I think I heard somewhere it was like a $10 million ARR, right? It was like an ongoing agency.
Yeah, we got it was like 10 and change and growing, and that's when we exited. Because when you get to 10 million in annual recurring revenue, your buyer pool changes, meaning the types of firms that are willing to acquire your business completely changes. You go from just different mandates of different firms. And so we were always pushing towards that number, and that's when we would go out to sell the business. So once we hit that, we started positioning the company to sell, found a buyer, and that was cool.
Who was the buyer? If you don't mind me asking.
It was a private equity firm called ESW Capital. I've actually written a whole book on the whole experience. It's called Getting Acquired.
Wow.
And I talk about like when I got the idea, basically building, because I bootstrapped the business as well. Going from like a shitty MVP to getting the first customers, or distribution strategy. Because when you bootstrap a company, you can't afford like a giant sales team.
Yeah.
And when you're selling to SMB, the lifetime value of that customer, it's usually, in-person sales strategy, if you will. That's why you see companies like 5-Star Belly, Chow now, they have people that go into restaurants and they'll hunt down the owner to secure the account. And so what we did was we leveraged a white label reseller network. So we took our software, and this was all from, I'll never forget it, but I had a customer in Sweden, and maybe our revenue was like 500,000 a month, nothing meaningful. But he had built a few apps for these like big Ramada hotels, and asked if I could just get on a call with him because I just wanted to learn from, I don't know, he's a rich guy. I'm like 21. And he told me he did not own the hotels, and he had an agency, and he managed like their website, their social media presence, basically all of their digital marketing. And so my next obvious question was, okay, how can I get you to sell more applications? And he just said, if you can remove the branding of your company business app so I can present these to clients as my own product, I'd be able to sell them at a higher price point, and sell them as like a semi-custom solution. So we ended up partnering with, at our peak, I think it was like 5,000 plus agencies all across the world. We were in like 40 different countries. And it just took off like a rocket ship because every agency at the time was trying to figure out how to deliver a mobile development service to their customers, but they didn't know the Apple approval process. They didn't want to hire in-house engineers. And we just came to them with the perfect solution out of the box. Like, hey, we'll take care of literally everything. We even had like white label marketing materials, sales PDFs, what have you. And we were just like, you just need to hand this to your customer and then maybe package it in with your current services. And that just kind of took off. So I would always say to my team, Business Apps was a distribution company, and not a technology company. We focused heavily on distribution. So I can't say we had the best product, but our distribution was just so crazy. And for a while, and again, I got to preface it with, we got pretty lucky just because, again, I started the business with no sales experience, no marketing experience. My last job was at like Sears selling TVs or something.
Crazy.
So I had no management experience or anything. So it was one of those opportunities. Like, the product market fit was so strong. It was pretty hard to mess up. I bet I could probably, if I could roll the tape back on that now, I bet I'd take it a little farther. Because I made a ton of mistakes. And I talked about them, in the book I wrote.
Okay, I want to dive into so many things. But before we do that, I just totally forgot. We do have a tradition on the show where we start off the show with a shot of hot sauce. You're not going to do any hot sauce because you will absolutely die.
I would throw up. I would literally, we'd have to end the podcast.
It would go viral. The show would go viral, but we're not going to do that to you today. Maybe we'll slowly get you. Maybe in the next couple of years, I'll try my best to get you to take a shot of hot sauce. But you have something. You're going to be drinking some beverage. What do you have for us
This
today?
is actually this is an antioxidant with a little bit of Robitussin in it. I just remembered.
All right.
Because I was sick last week, so I'll sip this and you sip that.
Let's do it. I don't mind doing that. And so I actually don't have I'm so dumb. I forgot to bring a spoon. So I'm just gonna go down. I'm gonna go straight with this. Hopefully I don't pour too much.
Are we doing?
But
are you doing one?
Yeah, let's do it.
1, 2, 3, or
let's
what?
do it. Cheers. Cheers.
There we go. Robitussin.
Okay. I poured way too much.
Yeah, see, that would melt my face off.
I didn't realize. Oh my God. I didn't realize how much I poured. In 1 second.
Oh man, I'll finish my Robitussin.
I did not realize it.
I admire your bravery.
Wow. The one time where the guest does not take hot sauce, I pour like probably 10% of that bottle. Oh man. This is unfiltered.
This is probably the funnest podcast I've been on. You should do it again.
Oh man. Okay, I can get through this. There was a question that I really wanted to ask you, and now I completely forgot. Oh man. All right, I'll get through this. So it's quite incredible how you grew everything from kind of zero with no marketing experience, no sales experience, uh, from zero to like a $10 million per year company. Do you think it was the fact that, at the time when you started the company, I think it was around 2010 or 2011 or something,
Yeah,
it was so
2010.
early stage, agencies for marketing was still such a new concept, and especially white labeling. You must have been one of the first companies who that white labeled marketing services, right? Like, I don't know, talk to us. Was it because you're so early in that world?
Yeah, yeah, I got two thoughts on that. So building a startup in 2010 compared to now, like no one knew what you were doing. Like there was the books on marketing were very limited. HubSpot had one out. So everyone was just guessing. Like Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross wasn't out yet. That was where like AE, the SDR model, was kind of invented per se. There wasn't social platforms like Twitter where you can go on and just LinkedIn, you get all this information. So everyone was just kind of winging it. Like we were just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the white label model was a suggestion from a customer. It wasn't my idea at all.
Mm,
So I think the lesson there is listen to your customers because that
yeah.
completely changed the direction of the
Mm,
business forever. And then related to your first question, I think when you really kind of catch lightning in the bottle, um, not saying I didn't build like the biggest company, but the product market fit was pretty intense in the first like we wouldn't answer the phones like if you weren't looking to sign because we didn't have like enough people or staff and stuff like that. Like we were just focused on delivering the product. It was pretty it was a pretty unique experience. Um and so the point I'm trying to make though is, every business I've ever built, I've always built it with some sort of unique insight where, I'm making a bet on something that's really obvious to me, that's not obvious to others, that's going to be obvious to others over time. So,
mm,
for example, with business apps, I'm in a college town, all my friends have iPhones, selling apps. Like we began selling apps all the local like bars and restaurants, and they'd send out push notes for like happy hour and stuff like
mm,
that. And just like that petri dish, if you will, of launching that business in that small college area where, the technology adoption curve, you have the early innovators. So everyone had an
yeah.
iPhone. So, I kind of saw that insight, I think, before others, especially with Phone Freelancer. And then if you think of my other businesses too, like altcoin was kind of a bet on blockchain. I think it was a little too early with that. And then microacquire as well, where I looked at, after exiting two businesses, I kind of thought, you know, I'd love to buy a business and going through an acquisition was a pain in the ass.
Mm,
Like there's two problems here. I think so. I made an obvious bet to me that was not obvious to others at the time, and that bet was I think there's going to be a huge rise in entrepreneurship through acquisitions. Just entrepreneurs buying businesses instead of starting businesses. The typical builder and scaler. Like if you're a VP of marketing at a company now, you can buy a small startup or a large startup. And then I saw the emergence of just, private equity growth. And so I just saw those, all that kind of colliding. I thought, this could be a really interesting business. So just having those unique insights, usually coming from personal experience, can really give you a leg up on competition because it allows you to kind of get ahead. Because if you try to enter a market like AI or like remote
yeah.
work or something like that, or the creator space or something like that, in my opinion, you're probably kind of too late. You want to get into those markets before the rush happens, if you will. So a lot of it's just, they say the number one factor for startups being successful is market timing. Like YouTube wasn't successful until Adobe Flash because it was too costly to host a bunch of videos. Uber, wasn't successful until the mobile phone came out. There's just so many examples of, companies where, the first mover wasn't the winner. Or Airbnb is another example. There's Couchsurfer before that. Microacquire had a competitor before us called Exit Round, which we acquired. And so my point being is, market timing the market and when the market is ready is one of the most important things, and just having and you got to make a bet, so you're gonna be wrong a lot of times, if not all the time. But that's always kind of been how I think about starting businesses is, I don't think about what the world needs today, but what is the world going to look like in 2-3 years, and try to optimize around that, if you will.
So I liked your point about, you're making a bet, but not all of your bets will come to fruition, right? It's looking at your LinkedIn. It's outside looking in. It might be like, okay, Andrew's always making the right bets. But have there been bets in the past where you did not make? Like, for example, you were 8 years you were at BizApp, right? For 8 years you were building it. Were you building a business app? Were you building other things on the side to try to make bets outside of it, or were you like kind of full in? I think that's the first part of the question. And then second part, were there any bets that you kind of screwed up on?
Yeah, definitely. So with business apps, we amass such a large customer base of agencies. And so we built like a do-it-yourself website builder. We built like a simple CRM that would pull data from Google My Business and Yelp to help people find leads to sell to small businesses. Looking back, we shouldn't have built those products just because there's better CRMs. We kind of just built these free products, but comparative to a Weebly or a Wix or a Squarespace, it just wasn't good enough. So those are some mistakes I made. But we made big bets on those. Like, we really put a lot of engineering power into especially the website builder was called I think Business Web, I think is what we named it. And then we called CRM Business CRM. So everything had a BIZ, sort of like.
How much money did you invest in that venture?
I'd probably say like $500,000. It was quite a bit. And it had traction, but again, even though we offered it completely for free, and maybe this is a lesson for entrepreneurs that I found out to be pretty interesting, was our main product was selling our white labeled technology to build mobile apps. And with that, you get a free website builder, you get a free CRM. And then we'd have customers get so stuck on the CRM and the website builder that some of them would churn just because. So if they never had those other products, so it's just kind of like we gave them like too much. And so that's why we started deprecating the products, because it number one, it took away focus, but then two, customers would log into the CRM as an example, and they'd say, it doesn't do what I want to do. I can't do, and they never focus on the main product. So that sort of distraction, I think, is something I would undo. And those were big bets. And the idea was, making our partners more efficient, giving more tools, but in reality, just being great at one thing is really what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I would say, nowadays as a marketer, we know this is to kind of niche down. You mentioned nowadays is so much more competitive. You want to be the best at one thing, such that no other competitor can be better than you in this one area. So niching allows you to do that. Otherwise, you're just mediocre in various different areas, right? But I mean, unless you have a big investor that has come in and just literally, or even the public markets given you like billions of dollars, you don't really have the resources to do that, right? To invest in so many different areas, right? So that definitely holds true. So we talk a lot about business apps, right? You kind of grew that for 8 years. This was your third venture, right? Your first one you sold for 50,000. Second, you sold for 50,000. This is your third venture.
Yeah.
And you sold that. How much did you end up selling that one for?
I've actually never told anybody, but over $1 million, less than $1 billion is the answer I'll give you.
Oh, crap. I think I have to take another shot of hot sauce. I'll do this for you. I'm going to try to be a little more careful this time. Definitely less than the first one. Not so bad. So over $1 million, less than $1 billion.
Correct.
Over under on 500 million.
Under.
Okay, so this is one of the games that we that is a drinking game in Korea, by the way. Since I'm here, it's like a random number, and you try to you say a number, and it just goes over and under. You get like 5 guesses, and if you can't guess it right, we're not going to play the game today. But so after the
go ahead.
So after this, you have altcoin, and you ran that for a little over a year. You raised some money successfully. What was I guess by now you have kind of learned how to sell a company, but was this the first time? This was the first time you raised money. What tips would you? What did you learn in this process of raising? You raised around $800,000. What tips would you give to other founders that are listening that maybe never had experience raising capital as well?
I think it always, comes down to just, there's a lot of traction with the business. And I should clarify with business apps, we raised $100K from just 2 local angel investors. So I've always kind of had investors, but the amounts were so small with business apps, I consider it bootstrapping, but that's up for debate. But regardless, with altcoin, we had like 300,000 like pre-registered users. We had like a prototype to be built, and just to clarify what we were building was we were building a protocol that would speed up times on the Ethereum blockchain, and we were making really good progress. And there's something called testnet where you have mainnet and testnet. Mainnets were all the basically production, and you have staging. And so the main difference was basically we just had more capital to aggressively attack the problem. And I mean that's really all raising capital does. It's a tool, and it allows you to accelerate your roadmap, the hires you want to make, and if the opportunity is big enough, I'm a big supporter of it. But I'm also a big supporter of bootstrap a business, sell it, get a win on your belt, because then you can afford to take kind of these, potentially decade-long, journeys to build, like a $100, $200, $300 million company, because it takes a long time, and it isn't easy. And a lot of founders kind of think, first company I'm going to raise money, and they get stuck in it, and I just think that sucks. And I think so I always say, my recommended path for entrepreneurship is, start an agency, kind of figure out, a common problem, build a SaaS business, bootstrap it, sell it, and then go swing for the fences and lay on the beach. But to get back to your question, not much different. I mean, you're able to just accelerate what you're looking to accomplish a little bit faster. And given we didn't have a business model, meaning we were building a protocol and we hadn't yet launched it yet. So we needed the capital to sustain the business. And then what ended up happening to that business was that this was in like 2018 when the SEC was trying to determine like what's a security token, what's a utility token, and they basically said everything that we were doing was like illegal, not directly to us, because the first application we were going to use for this protocol was decentralized Coinbase, essentially,
Right.
so like a cryptocurrency exchange.
Right.
And we didn't have the regulatory compliance. We were essentially building a unregulated securities exchange, which is a huge no. Like, so it was kind of like a super bug. And I talked with my team, and luckily we had built relationships like literally from day one with potential partners, potential acquirers. And so what we did to actually sell the business, because number one, I didn't want to raise more capital. Two, I didn't want to be involved in the crypto market industry, if you will. I'm not a technical founder, so it just it wasn't as enjoyable as say business apps. And then three, it just, I can't imagine ever going to sleep with a cryptocurrency exchange. Those things get hacked all the time.
Oh yeah.
And so what we did was we flipped it. So we pulled a business apps, and instead of saying like, hey, we're Altcoin, we're this, decentralized exchange coming out that has the same, trading speeds as a centralized exchange. We're a white label, platform with software. And the goal was to find one buyer that had the regulatory compliance to launch the platform. And when we found that one buyer, which was Bank to the Future, they ended up buying the whole company. And then we used that money to basically just pay back investors. And there was, I believe, a little bit left over, and that was it. So that one wasn't nearly as successful as business apps. And
what was the amount?
I've actually never told anyone the exact amount publicly.
Please don't make me take another shot of hot sauce.
You got to take it. I it's just like it's one of those things like where, if you say the amount, it's either too small or not enough. You just can't win. So I have never publicly stated sales of businesses.
I gotta be
so
careful.
You gotta take a shot.
I gotta be very careful with the questions I ask you. Oh man.
So if I don't answer a question, you have to take a shot.
We're supposed to do it together.
But because I respect I'm like
you,
allergic to spicy
because
stuff.
I respect you. We're not gonna do that. Okay.
Let's just say it was a nominal amount, and I like to reference it as we landed the plane in the Hudson River. No one got hurt. We were able to walk away with the business. Investors unscathed. Lots of lessons learned.
Okay.
And it was fun too.
Yeah. So I guess, during your process of selling business apps, you've spoken with a lot of different buyers. Were those same people that you ended up raising money from, and that kind of led to altcoins, or was that completely separate? The people that you raised from and that you connected with, were they completely different?
Oh, completely separate. So for business apps, we raised $100K from two local Chico State investors, Robert Chazarino and Christian Friedland. And for altcoin, we just did a Reg A round, which is a Reg CF. We did a crowdfund round through WeFunder because we wanted to get like the cryptocurrency community involved and all that fun stuff.
Right.
So two totally separate groups.
Okay, cool. And during that last stage, because I heard, I spoke to some founders on the podcast that sold companies, it becomes kind of like a full-time role near that final leg when you're trying to sell, right? Were you doing it at a full-time, or were you trying to look for a buyer part-time for a while?
I mean, I think every business is always for sale if the price is right. even at business apps when I was like 25 or 26, I sold the business when I was 29, and we actually hired an investment bank, and we had a few offers, 3 exactly. We had 2 from, you could probably guess some like big do-yourself website builders, kind of GoDaddy-esque type companies. And then 1 from a huge private equity firm, and they were looking to do like a 70% buyout for like 30 million on secondary. So 30 million would go to me, and then the other 30% would, it was some structure where basically they were going to buy the company and then position it more up towards enterprise. And there was an entrepreneur in residence at the firm, and basically turned down all those offers just because I still had gas in the tank. I wanted to keep going. And what was I going to say after that? The minimum fee of the investment bank was $800K.
Wow.
And I just couldn't get over that. I was just like, I'm not paying you guys $800,000 for these intros, but they did an exceptional job. But I was just young and brash at the time. I was like, no, man, we can keep going.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple of things that,
and then just to like really kind of sting it in. So we said no to one acquire, and then they ended up buying my competitor for $40 million.
Holy smokes! Wow.
Yeah, so that pissed off. But it all worked out in the end. I mean, we did good in the end. But that was a moment of like, oh fuck, maybe I should have taken that offer.
Yeah. Okay, so there's 2 things I want to talk about. Yeah. Actually, no. You go. You go first, and then we'll go myself.
I was gonna say they ended up shutting down the competitor like a year later. So we ended up absorbing like all their business because it was like a acqui-hire thing. I don't know what they were thinking with them. I think they just wanted some sort of mobile play. Because again, this is when mobile was like super, super hot, and then like some of these larger companies knew they were behind.
Yeah.
And so they needed some sort of like solution, especially the public companies that were making offers. And I think they just kind of folded it into their main business. And so we actually grew from that acquisition, which was unusual.
So it was good on all fronts, except for the buyer. They probably got screwed the most. But okay, there's 2 last things I want to touch on. By the way, thanks. This has been a great podcast. It's been a lot of fun, even though I'm not seeing you struggle. I wish you were struggling as much as I am right now.
I promised you, like literally, even pepper would make my eyes burn. I don't know what it is with my taste buds, but they are very sensitive.
Yeah, and you don't drink alcohol either. 0.
No, I mean, I will like at like weddings and stuff like that. And we had like a company offsite on Friday. I was drinking there.
Okay.
But
so next time we'll do the podcast, I'll do it the day of my wedding so that we can actually do a drink together.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Chico State, dude. Yeah. So like, I kind of I fit in a decade of drinking in college
for sure.
And then I lived in San Francisco,
plenty of drinks there
for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point I'm like a dad. I'm a little grown up.
Yeah. I guess I got a little bit of growing up to do still. So there's 2 things I really want to touch on before, our time's up. Number 1, I want to talk about the beginning of your career of business apps, because when you started, you didn't know it. You said you didn't know anything. You weren't a marketer. You weren't a salesperson. You didn't really have many I wanted to know what hard skills you had. And then after that, I want to talk about micro hire, and how things are going. And then we'll talk about marketing tips, which is the point of the show, is talking about the marketing tips. So let's go back. When you first started, what skills did you actually have? Hard skills did you have when you started business apps?
I'd say sales has always kind of come natural to me. Just learning. Okay, we need to build a mobile app builder. How do we do it? I kind of would mimic other companies. I always say, one of my favorite quotes is, good artists copy, great artists steal,
Yeah.
and that's by Pablo Picasso, which I think was stolen by another
Yep.
artist. But so I would just look at different business models and I'd say, hey, we're going to do that, but this. And so
But did you do the actual
I'd
coding yourself though?
no.
Okay.
So I hired just someone on Upwork, and they were absolutely like a CTO level. And his name was Raymond Chester, and he was based in China.
Yeah.
And he probably could have been like a CTO at like a Silicon Valley company. And then as we scaled, I didn't know how to, assess the skill sets of other engineers. So I just said, hey, do you have any friends? And we ended up hiring 20 of his friends at our peak.
Wow.
So we rented out like an office for all of them. So we had all of our engineering over in China. It was just led by this guy, Raymond Chester.
So your skill is not just sales. It's I think it's with people. Like you understand the customer persona. I think you talk about the customer a lot, right? One of the things that you constantly preach on LinkedIn is talk to and listen to your customers. Just constantly do that, and you also listen to your people. That's one of the reasons why you're able to assess Raymond's skill set without actually even knowing the technical side of the business. You were able to assess his skills and know if he was doing his job correctly or not. And then part of sales also is kind of understanding what the other person wants and what they want to hear, right? So that seems to be a skill set that is very important for founders.
Yeah, I guess, another way I would kind of put it is just, kind of grit and like persistence. Like it drives me crazy when people are like, how do you learn sales? It's like, dude, just type it into fucking Google.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, go get a sales
Yeah.
job, like read a marketing book. Or, another pet peeve of mine is, I can't start a business without capital. Well, it's like, go save capital and, plan it out, like go figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think, just having that sort of like determination of like, I'm going to make this work no matter
Yeah.
what. And at that age, that was my mindset, because with business apps, that was my ticket to a better life.
Right.
It was like a better, future for my family. I knew I really had something special. And so I think just having that sort of mindset that every problem has a solution, and you may not be an expert in solving the problem, but if you're, extremely curious, you're able to
Persistent.
teach yourself anything. Yeah, like that persistence of like, okay, here's a problem, I'm going to figure it out. And I think that's probably what made business apps successful was, I was young, I had tons of energy, I was super motivated. I think without, those traits of just, being motivated, I always like to say with startups, you gotta learn to love it when it sucks, because it sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
And just being able to push through that stuff. So just, keeping a level head too, positivity, learning to laugh, like, and stuff's on fire.
That's why we got hot sauce on the show. Um, where does this persistence come from? Parents, friends, some friends that
Uh,
taught you? You had a mentor growing up. Where did you get? Because I like persistence. Like that's one thing. Like you can learn sales, you can learn a bunch of things, but persistence is one of those things. I don't know if you can necessarily learn it. Like you just gotta have it.
one funny thing for the listeners about persistence. So when I was 12 or something like that in seventh grade, I started a skateboard petition to ride my skateboard to school because my principal kept giving me like detention and stuff. And I just said basically like, hey, go fuck yourself. Like I'm gonna go petition this. And it was in all these like it was on like the news, like I was on like the Dr. Laura show, like Tony Hawk, like sent me skateboard. It was like my 15 minutes of fame, and my life has been downhill ever since. But I think I've always kind of been that way. I kind of just don't, when I hear no, I'm like, okay, but yeah, I'm gonna keep trying until I kind of figure out a different angle that works. So I think it's just part of my personality, I guess you could say. But also it's important to like be persistent within reason, like understand like, hey, this is never going to happen. So you don't, annoy someone or,
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between, being persistent and just being annoying.
Yeah. What was family situation growing up? Like did your parents, were your parents also like entrepreneurial and you kind of learned from them, or were they not, so that you kind of wanted to work hard for a better life? Like what was that like?
Yeah. Well, my dad passed away when I was 6. My mom had me when I was 19, my brother at 18. And we were in like San Clemente, this like amazing like oceanfront town. So like I'd go to my friends' houses and they were these like $1 million beachfront mansions. So I think that's where kind of probably like the early sort of, like, hey, I want to play business because how did you get this house? This is sick.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get that? That's cool. I think that's kind of like, when you're surrounded by so much, when I'm getting picked up at middle school and my parents pull up in like, like this minivan, I'll never put this timing belt that's just going like,
Yeah.
and the cars behind us are these like, beautiful Escalades, money just becomes like kind of amplified. And I think maybe I just thought, I want those
And you just want to
things.
give your family, your future family, a better life too, right? Because like I think that
Yeah,
matters a lot.
When you've struggled and you've seen the floor, like it's hard to describe in terms of, the motivation that it can teach you. And I think there's a good quote, and I don't wish it on anybody, but I think it was Winston Churchill who said the best thing you could do for a child is have them grow up in poverty, because it just teaches you to kind of like every day for me is just awesome. Like I'm grateful for what I have. I'm not flying private or anything like that, but I mean, I'm thankful for the opportunities that, I, went after, that were put in front of me for some reason. But yeah, I would say just like that early sort of stages of growing up in a town like San Clemente and kind of being on the lower end of the financial spectrum, if you will. Kind of maybe put a chip on my shoulder, like, hey, I could do that too, if you will.
I don't know if you follow Patrick Bet David. He talks about that a lot from Valuetainment.
It's very common. It's very common. Like Christian Friedland, who is he would literally we would talk like every single day when we were growing business apps, and he was just an angel investor, but he didn't invest in
right?
business apps. And he didn't invest in too many companies. And he had sold his company build.com for like 50 million or something like that. And he stayed on as CEO, and he just dumped so much knowledge into my head. And he had a similar background too, where he kind of grew up, without a lot of means. He just said like, hey, I want to be a millionaire when I grow up. And, once you kind of get there too, it's really not that cool. It's just like, all right.
I think it's honestly, it's a very similar story to a lot of founders I talk to. Very rarely do you have a founder that's successful. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say rarely. It happens, but I think I appreciate the stories of kind of rags to riches or from zero to hero kind of stories. I guess because I kind of I see kind of reflection of myself in that as well. I mean, I hope to achieve everything that you've achieved one day, and I think a lot of people listening are probably, if they've listened to this far, 48 minutes into the show, they probably feel a lot of what you said. Growing up, I had a single mom as well with 2 brothers. So imagine a single mom with 3 kids, 3 boys, right? A lot of food on the table.
Yeah,
It was hard.
It's tough. Yeah, food stamps and everything. Like it wasn't, the funnest, but I always say, sometimes those things are just blessings in disguise, and they make you who you are. So in a way, I'm extremely grateful for like everything I've had, good and bad, that's happened in my life.
Man, I wish we can wrap it up. Do you still have 10 minutes left? Maybe we can talk a little bit about
Yeah,
micro hire.
yeah, I got
Okay.
another
Okay,
10.
cool. Yeah.
It's acquire now because we're dropping the
Right.
micro.
In the background is still micro hire. So let's
Yeah,
figure out a
I
way. Oh yes,
I,
the new
I
swag,
I'm throwing up the
the
sweater that says
new
acquire,
swag.
but I got a painting that says micro acquire. I got to figure that
Yeah.
out. It's painted on,
Oh
so
really?
I might have to just
Figure it out.
yeah. My creative
White
director.
out. You get some white out and just do that. So micro hire, acquire, acquire. Where are we now with acquire? Any stats you can share? Amount raised, revenue, total amount of companies on that. Any kind of numbers that you can share so that the listeners can know where we're at right now?
Yeah. In terms of capital raised, a little over 10 million. In terms of actual transaction deal volume, so the amount of capital we've returned to founders or helped get acquired, I believe over 600 million at this point, so over half a billion. We have 200 startups, or excuse me, 2,000 startups listed on MicroAcquire today. We average every month about between 30 to 50 million in acquisitions per month. And that's usually swayed by like one big whale closing or not closing,
Yeah,
kind of like enterprise
yeah.
sales. We have over 200,000 registered buyers. Team size is 18, 16, 17, 18, pretty lean.
Wow.
I like to keep teams as small as possible. Nail it before you scale it, if you will.
So 18 employees managing 30 to 50 million dollars per month in transactions. How does that how does that work? I'm just trying like I can't even see I can't even imagine what goes on under the hood. Like what kind of people are on your team right now?
Yeah, so most of it's product. So we have tools that help with due diligence. Like we have a tool that will create a 36-month P&L. We have a letter of intent builder. We have an asset purchase agreement builder. So we aren't actually involved in the deals. We connect buyers and sellers, and we review. And most of the work that we do that's kind of manual is we review the legitimacy of every listing that goes on MicroQuire. So we have a pretty stringent listing policy, if
Is
you
that
will.
automated, like AI based,
Uh,
or is it manual? Like
Manual. No, we look at it. We ID verify every seller. We'll ask for proof of ownership, all that sort of stuff, just so no one gets scammed.
yeah,
But the way it works is we're not involved in actual negotiations, because that would be a lot of conversations.
yeah,
Like right now,
yeah,
I believe we have like 250 letter of intents
yeah,
out, because you can create a letter of intent and then make an offer on a company, and as a seller, as a founder, you can accept that, and then now you're in due diligence, getting towards the finish line.
mm,
Some of those will fall through, but right now we have 250 deals that are up in the air to be acquired. And so we've just built, and that was kind of what I wanted to do with MicroAcquire, was make things more efficient and streamlined and almost standardized, because a letter of intent can be written in 100,000 different ways.
yeah,
We wanted, just like Y Combinator made the YC safe, we wanted, the standard MicroAcquire LOI, MicroAcquire asset purchase
yeah,
agreement. Because when you get buyers and sellers on the same page with terms and just how the whole process of the acquisition goes, deals just move faster. And so a big part of our strategy is, building tools that just makes, the process of buying and acquiring startups easier for both founders and buyers as well.
okay. So very product driven. In terms of marketing, you guys are obviously one of the leaders, if not the leader, in terms of buying and selling small to medium sized businesses, even enterprise level. Um, what are your strategies? And maybe we don't have much time to dig into what you did in the beginning. Like I don't know, would you rather talk about the beginning or would you rather talk about your marketing strategy now?
Uh, Either or, whichever one you think would be more interesting works for me.
Maybe just quickly breeze through the number one thing that helped drive growth in the beginning, early beginnings, and then talk about
Talking to
how
people,
that's different now.
talking to people. Yeah, got on the phone with a lot of people. Like, because it's a two-sided marketplace, and so um, you have no brand, you have no credibility. So there's an article I've written. It's called "Closing the Credibility Gap." I wrote it for, I think, Sales Hacker or something like that. But when you first launch a startup, you have no credibility. Nobody believes you. No one trusts you,
Yeah.
and so to seed the marketplace, I talked to more founders than I can count, more buyers than I can count. And then when we finally launched the marketplace, it had already been populated a little
Yeah.
bit. And that was kind of like the spark that kind of took things from
How
there.
many founders do you reckon you spoke with
At least 100.
in like per year or in history? In the history of
I would talk to about 5 a day. So in a month, I talked to like 100.
100 per day.
Or no,
I mean,
5 per
sorry,
day.
5 per
So
day, 100 per month. So that's like 1,200, 1.2K, or 1,000 founders per year.
yeah, but I scaled it back because deal flow started coming in inbound. So I didn't need to essentially do a demo, or, credibility was starting to be organically
Yeah.
built. And then that really took off once people started actually buying assets and startups on the platform.
Yeah.
And then that flywheel, once you get that flywheel going, it kind of just doesn't stop.
So on the founder side, obviously you have to have a lot of conversations with them, and they're motivated to talk to you because they want to sell. But what about on the buyer side? Are they as motivated to talk to you, or they're more, skeptical because they have to be naturally skeptical because they're buying?
Yeah. So buyers, what we would do is we would just ask if any of so we would talk to buyers, or I guess me, because it was just me starting the company initially. I would cold email a bunch of, seed funds, basically just download like a big list of, seed investors, and just said like, hey, are any of your portfolio companies looking to buy companies? I started off with, are any of your portfolio companies looking to sell? And that didn't really work too well. But when I flipped it to buy, they'd be like, oh, yeah. And then also I have like 5 that are looking to sell. It was a less offensive sort of like, so that was
Okay.
interesting. Yeah, so that was a little trick. Because they were like, "Oh, you can buy them. Well, can I sell them too?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can."
Wow.
So I kind of got them. So they would inform their larger portfolio companies, because the buyers on MicroAcquire range from public companies to private equity firms to family
Right.
offices, like really high net worth.
In both US
You
and
know,
Canada, or global?
global. We have buyers on every continent except Antarctica.
Wow.
Still working on that one. It's a little cold up there. But yeah, I mean, just the long story short of just getting anything off the ground, I think it's just persistence. Again, it's just you got to will it into existence. There's no secret formula. There's no silver bullets. It's just putting in the
Yeah,
work.
and it's today, 2022, heading into 2023. Is it more or less the same? Just ringing, and dialing.
No, we've switched more towards a content strategy. I'm a big believer in kind of having a company think like a media
Yeah,
company. We do have a small ad spend, but nothing really worth talking about. But we have a huge resources section on Micro Acquire now, that talks about everything from the legal process to what is due diligence, how to vet a buyer, every possible question you could have about an acquisition. We write about those topics, and then we get a lot of buyers and sellers signing up from just organic search. And then we obviously do a lot of media through, we have a sister publication called Bootstrappers. And then we have our own podcast where we interview founders that have successfully sold on microacquire. So just a lot of content creation. Very active
How
on
much money are you
social.
guys spending on content, like on a monthly basis right now?
Um, it's hard to add up off the top of my head because we have full-time writers in-house,
Okay.
W2.
So it's internal plus
Um,
you have an external resource as well that helps.
no, we only have
All in-house.
in-house. I'd say maybe like 200 grand if I'm thinking about their salaries all
And it's
combined.
like it's
We
per
have
month
we
or
we have three.
that's per month?
Oh no, that'd be
Okay, that's
annually.
annually.
Annually,
And that's like video
yeah.
plus SEO, like written content plus PR, or if you guys do any PR, like just everything, social as well,
Nope.
right?
Yep.
Everything combined.
Yeah. So I try to focus on really, really low cost customer acquisition
Yeah,
strategies that compound and build up over time, and those are the ones that can create unfair advantages, in my opinion.
yeah,
Because you can copy someone's paid ad campaigns in 15 minutes if you do enough
yeah,
research. So we invest heavily in just basic content creation. It's not
yeah.
the sexiest strategy or the most unique strategy, but it works.
Honestly, it's the one that held the test of time. I think people got too caught up and carried away with the paid strategy because it's easy. Like you said, you just pull up and you whip up a campaign and then you see like a 2x ROI and then you're like, okay, that's great. And I'm going to try to scale it to 4x. And people got really caught up with that. And you see like the cost of ads really climbing up over the last 2-3 years. I'm sure you've seen that. And but what really stood the test of time has always been content and organic growth. And now, with the looming recession, I think a lot of companies are kind of going back to this. Are you seeing? Uh, do you agree with that, or do you still? I mean, or do you think there's anything else that people should be looking towards now that there's a little bit of a people should be a little bit more cautious about their money. Do you think there's anywhere else that people can be investing their time and efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the business. I think just doubling down on your most effective channels is always the best strategy. So it depends. I mean, some companies do really well with just, kind of no marketing and just, a B2B sales process.
No.
Um, you know, Figuring out ways to optimize that. But it just depends on the business. But a content strategy, I can't see ever hurting a business or anyone being like, this isn't working.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like because even if you do, like, let's say let's say outbound sales is doing well for you, but then they come onto your site or they try to search you up and you have nothing to say online, like absolutely no content. Well, that's going to be hard to sell. I mean, I can't think of a business where where a content strategy can hurt, um, especially if it's organic.
Yeah, because even if you have, I call it air cover. So what you're doing with the content strategy or just a brand strategy or even just a social strategy, if you have a social team, is when that cold email lands, they've heard of you before. And
Yeah,
so, your response rates for cold emails to schedule a demo are going to be so much higher because you've given your sales team air cover by just they've heard of your
yeah,
business.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, we're an hour. This is officially the longest episode, and the only episode where I was the only one taking hot sauce. So this is very interesting. But it's been so informative, and really enjoyed listening to your story. We're definitely gonna have to get you on again. I'll think about something as a marketer. I'll think about something how we can make it more. Hopefully, it was fun for you. But um,
yeah, I had a blast, man.
yeah, I appreciate you. And hopefully we can, kind of do round two in the new year. But any last words you want to say to the listeners? Last things about Acquire or last tips or whatever before we jump out?
Uh No, just maybe, if you want to, follow my journey, you can follow me on Twitter, Gazdecki, or LinkedIn. And then if you want to hear more about the first company we talked about, the book's it's on Amazon. It's called Getting Acquired. It's priced at cost, so you can get the Kindle version for like 99 cents if you want to hear that whole story. But it's like my honest view of like all the mistakes I made. So if you read that, you might, if I can help you save a mistake, it's worth. It made the book worth writing.
Yeah, because I'm sure this hour-long conversation, we only kind of touched the tip of the iceberg, but your book probably goes deep into everything. So that's amazing. Well, Andrew, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your holidays.